During the first few minutes of Christmas Eve in 2012, New York rapper Capital STEEZ, real name Courtney Everald Dewar Jr., jumped off the roof of the Cinematic Music Group's headquarters. It was a painful moment in rap history, and it left so many people asking, why? Capital STEEZ, formerly known as J STEEZ, was the primary founder of the rap group Pro Era, a New York crew of extremely young but talented rappers and producers, including Joey Bada, Kirk Knight, Nick Caution, and CJ Fly. Pro Era was short for Progressive Era. The group had two primary goals: to respond to the dominant success of West Coast hip-hop by putting New York back on the map, and to introduce a more spiritually focused message to the culture.
And it's a different rhythm every time. Had to switch the signs just to let designers send the signs. Adjust the frequency divine, how we synthesize 13 steps. Let the enterprise synchronize.
STEEZ's persona was also different than that of his pro-era counterparts. He seemed to wield the outsider perspective in his verses, attempting to criticize the very foundation of the music industry and American society. His anger was never expressed through violent lyrics, but instead through a dark and grim wisdom that came across as impressively intelligent and always just a little bit weird.
See, we be the illest thing in the starter cab. Ride the actors off the back, we got a lot to offer back. Split decision, lyricism, gotta spit and venom.
He was born Courtney Everald Dewar Jr. in the summer of 1993. He grew up in Brooklyn during the 90s, which had heavy influence on the music he listened to growing up. With rap legends like Jay-Z, Biggie, Nas, Mos Def, 50, and many more calling the borough their home, it didn't take long for Courtney, now going by Jamal, to get into rapping. When he was only 12 years old, he released a joint mixtape with his best friend at the time, Jakari Jack, making the Yellow Tape his first mixtape in 2009. Fast forward to high school, and Jamal was even more focused on music.
And we standing with the president of celestial beings, all seeing. But actually, you cats can't rap with me and tag the beat. A savage was asking to make you tap your feet.
This is where he would meet the other members of what would become Pro Era, including Joey Bada. The group of friends would spend their days in school, hosting cyphers in the hallways and recording out of any loose studios throughout their school. At that time, the group was made up of STEEZ, Power Pleasant, Joey Bada, and CJ Fly. They were a group of high school friends that loved to roam the city while skating, smoking, and rapping. Although the entire group was still in their teens, their music sounded like a style of hip-hop that had long been abandoned.
No need to be loud and obnoxious, know the loud in my pockets ain't allowed, but I watched it open up my mind and my
Pro Era's sound featured sophisticated wordplay and jazz beats, sounds that reflected back to the so-called golden age of hip-hop in the late 80s and early 90s. It didn't take long before the group of talented teenagers would make their first big wave in the industry. This came in February of 2012, when Joey Bada and Capital STEEZ released the song Survival Tactics.
Get your intel right, your intelligence is irrelevant, but it's definite. I spit more than speech impediments. Brooklyn's the residence, the best, and it's evident. We got 'em.
Within weeks, it had gained over 100,000 views. 2 months later, Capital STEEZ released his debut solo album, American Corruption. You may have already noticed the interesting symbol that's shown on the cover art. This was used to showcase 47, and it looks very similar to another symbol that's historically linked to a lot of negativity. STEEZ was already very interested in spirituality. This led him to be attracted to the number 47.
But the 47 is actually it's an angelic number.
Yeah.
If you look it up, it has a deep meaning in numerology, number 4 and 7. So when you put them together, it keeps a strong balance. And it adds up to 11, your pineal gland, 11th chakra, you know?
In hindsight, this logo may not have been the best choice for STEEZ, but we'll get into that more later on. Despite being the clear leader of Pro Era from the perspective of the group themselves, it was actually Joey Bada who seemed to be gaining the most traction with the outside world. Cinematic Music Group, a promotional music company, got Joey to sign a contract under the name of Pro Era, but it became clear with time that the company was primarily interested in Joey over the other artists. They pumped out higher budget music videos for Joey immediately following the release of his tape 1999. Then, they changed the credits of Joey and STEEZ's breakout track, Survival Tactics, from Joey Bada and Capital STEEZ to Joey Bada featuring Capital STEEZ. When they toured together, the group was listed as Joey Bada and Pro Era. STEEZ noticed that he was becoming an afterthought in the group that he had initially created. To this day, people may argue that STEEZ was the better artist, but his music was less marketable to the mainstream audience than Joey's. and American corruption was failing to create a buzz in the way that he had hoped.
Illuminati trying to read my mind with an eagle eye, and the haze got me thinking why we killed Osama and plenty innocent people died.
Around this time, his spiritual beliefs evolved into something stranger and harder to understand by his family and friends. A lot of them were confused by the things that he was starting to talk about, and even his tweets started to reflect this. Towards the end of 2012, his family and friends had growing concerns. During the last week of his life, he had withdrawn from his closest friends and family and would spend multiple days inside. STEEZ told his mom that he was worried about being under investigation for his 47 stickers, and that the only way he would get rid of the whole situation was if he hurt himself.
Yeah, it's a 47 sticker.
It also has some sort of controversy attached to it.
No, it's actually under investigation.
It's under investigation from who?
I think it's 70th precinct. We think it's a Nazi symbol, and we actually found out that there's this specific group of Nazis called the Wolf's Angel, and they have a swastika that looks more like the 47 sticker than we thought.
On December 21st, 2012, Pro Era dropped a collaborative mixtape titled Peep the Apocalypse. STEEZ was featured throughout the mixtape on 5 of the tracks. That night, Pro Era had a party at the Stussy store in Soho to celebrate the mixtape's release. The event was jam-packed, but according to the people there, something was off about STEEZ. He looked dazed, and he was slurring his words.
Capital STEEZ, today is December 21st, Peep the Apocalypse, World Domination, whatever you call that shit.
In general, it seemed like he was lacking any energy, but less than 3 days after the event, Capital STEEZ, who was only 19, was found dead in Manhattan's Flatiron District. Let's take a look at the days between the mixtape party and his death.
I got a good that never fell, and I don't know what to say.
The night after the party, STEEZ and the group were at Premiere Studios, the studio Cinematic was using in Midtown. It was here that STEEZ told some of the Pro Era members that he was thinking of hurting himself by jumping off the building where Cinematic had its offices. A handful of the members tried to talk him out of it, but it seems it was too late. He had already made up his mind. Nobody seems to know exactly what happened to STEEZ the next day, on the 23rd, but his mom had gone to sleep thinking her son was at home. But she awoke later that night when one of the group members showed up at the door, worried and looking for STEEZ. She immediately called a self-harm hotline. A police report notes a call was placed around 12:15 a.m. during the first few minutes of Christmas Eve. Pro Era and other friends took action as worry about STEEZ began to spread. The group met up at a park and began to search around 1 a.m. They spent an hour and a half searching and calling out for him. They didn't know, but by that point, STEEZ had already passed away.
Nowadays my heart beats to this metronome, and my heart beat is waiting for a recollective home, and a calm rhythm that resembles home.
Just hours before this, STEEZ had made his way to the Cinematic Group building. A guard at the building let STEEZ in because he counted as an employee, and at some point, he walked up to the roof where he used to freestyle with the rest of Pro Era. STEEZ had texted a close friend, telling her that he was about to smoke, and at 11:54 p.m., he sent a message to another girl he was friends with, saying, "I love you." And then, one final message to the world, 1 minute before midnight. He simply tweeted, "The end." Shortly after, he jumped into the cold December night. In the morning, Capital STEEZ was in the alleyway across from the Cinematic building. He had jumped just moments after midnight. The NYPD told the family that STEEZ was found clutching a Bible to his chest. Though it may be a coincidence, it's worth noting that the numbers in the date 12/23/12, which was his last full day, add up to 47. As you might imagine, the aftershock of STEEZ's death hit his family the hardest, and to the world, the story of Capital STEEZ is one that ended before it had the chance to reach its full potential. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I post hip-hop related content every week. Have a great day.